Welcome to the NJ Criminal Podcast and the final episode in this series.
You have always been really good at reading the room and anticipating what may happen. But you know what? You're salt of the earth, Matt, and you are genuine, you are authentic, and it sounds like that's exactly what you did in this particular trial, particularly in your closing argument. So that's a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, you know, Meg, you're welcome. And just to comment before we go to the next thing, we are all just people. You can't start believing your own press. We should all be able to relate on a grassroots level. I participated in and I'm so grateful I did, in a re-entry simulation where people were re-entering society coming right from jail. And I was given a role, and a bunch of us were given a role to play. I got an envelope, it had some money, and it said, this is your circumstance, and you got to make so many meetings, and you got to try to work. And it was so frustrating to me. I said, I don't know how anybody could do this. And this was just an exercise. But could you imagine? That's real life for these people. Right. I think we can never lose sight of that.
I agree. I'm actually working on a series on reentry. I had a former student of mine who's now a graduate level student, and he's focused on reentry for personal and professional reasons. And we're working on getting some folks on the show to talk about it, specifically how New Jersey deals with reentry. It's just such an important topic.
It sure is.
And you know, you talk about this concept of justice, right? You know, the other thing I wanted to share was when I made the decision to go into private practice and become a defense attorney back at the end of 2017, really beginning of 2018. I was worried about how you were going to take it because, you know, you are a career prosecutor and you had, basically helped me become what I felt was a good prosecutor. And so I was a little nervous as to how you were going to handle the news that I was going on to the other side. And you sent me a note, and I have it right here in my hands. I keep it right in my top drawer. And you said, you know, dear Meg, it was great to talk to you. I'm excited for your new venture. But then you say, justice is two sides of the same coin. And I really appreciated that note, and I have really tried to, emulate that in the sense that, you know, as a defense attorney, and here in Cape May, Atlantic counties, and Cumberland counties where I practice, you know, we are also fortunate to have a very friendly collegiate bar. But I really do try to look at all my cases like I did as a prosecutor. What's the end game? What's the right result? How can I achieve a result for my client that's fair, you know, to the victim if there is one in the case, and also, you know, try to steer the ship straight, so to speak, for the client, depending upon the nature of the charge. And so I use that quote a lot. I say to a lot of people a lot of times, and I get asked the question a lot. You know, I actually got to speak to my youngest daughter's 7th grade class a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we talked about they were reading a play, 12 Angry Men, and in their literature class, and the teacher had asked me to come in and kind of talk about the criminal justice system. So I got the usual question that I get a lot, you know, how was it that you're able to become a defense attorney after being a prosecutor for so long? And every time I'm asked that question, I tell the story of the note that you sent me, how important that was to me, but also, you know, the sentiment contained in it. Justice is two sides of the same coin, and that's an important thing to keep in mind. And I try to achieve justice, you know, as a defense attorney, as I think I tried to do as a prosecutor too. So, but that comes from, you know, following in your footsteps and following your lead on a lot of cases. I mean, I saw you try cases in Cape May County where even after the defendant was found guilty, you know, you and the defense attorney agreed upon a particular result that you felt was fair and just. Not many people would do that. And so I really look up to you, Matt. And
Well,
I'm proud. I'm proud to call you. I was proud to call you a colleague, but I'm certainly more proud to call you a lifelong friend.
I certainly share that sentiment and that feeling about you, Meg. But you're giving me too much credit. But I really am touched that you take that to heart. But my philosophy is you need balance and ballast on both sides. If the prosecution runs amok, you're going to have totalitarianism, and if the defense runs amok unchecked, you're going to have anarchy. So that's neither of those is desired. And one of my proudest moments, and I've had a few recently with some of the, I call them the kids, but the young ADAs here, are when we discover that somebody unfortunately has been improperly charged, but before any real harm could come to them, where we no pros or we dismiss the charges. I had a case, and I won't go into tremendous detail, but this guy was charged with armed home invasion robbery with other co-defendants, and he claimed he didn't do it. He said he had an alibi, but he was too embarrassed to present it because it put him in an embarrassing situation that he could have presented to us. But he ultimately did. And Meg, the timeline, if it was perfect, he still could have committed this robbery, but it had to be perfect. And real life is not perfect. So this wasn't a law school exam. This was an instance in which, and I forgot to tell you, I approved the charges. So, my credibility, my ego is all at stake, but you can't, that's just not fair if you never look backwards. It's not fair. Your ego can take the hit. This guy's freedom can't. And what ended up happening, Meg, is I was pretty convinced that this was too perfect, the timing. So I went back to my boss and I said to her, look, just what I told you. I said, this is possible, but it's too circumstantial and I think it's too perfect. I want to dismiss the charges. And to her credit, she gave me her blessing, and I did. And then I left, and that was in Bucks County. I left, and I was in Lehigh County, and I reconnected with the detective years later for some judge's swearing in or something. And he said, you remember that Middletown home invasion job? I said, yeah, of course. We let the guy go. And he said, well, we arrested a guy for a bunch of gun store burglaries, and he confessed to those. And he said, and you remember that robbery where you locked that guy up in Middletown? And the detective's, yeah, and he's recounting this to me. And he said, well, that wasn't him. That was me. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, I could have locked this guy up for 5 years of his life. Wow. 5 years of his life like that, and probably convince a jury. I mean, that's the scary part, how much discretion and power and influence we actually have over people's very lives. And I'm not being melodramatic, and that's why when I'm explaining to the young people here, you can never be jaded, never forget people's humanity. You've got to constantly assess each case individually, as hard as that is, because people's lives are at stake, whether it's your victims, it's societal, or it's the defendants. Each case has meaning and import.
Right, and prosecutors' job is to achieve justice, not just convictions, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. That's a wonderful story. It really is. I mean, that just sums it up in a nutshell. Your commitment, your lifelong commitment to seeking and achieving justice. And, you could have let your ego get in the way, right? And you didn't. And that's so important, I think, for everyone to remember.
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree.
Well, listen, Matt, I appreciate you taking the time to come on to NJ Criminal Podcast and share, your background, all the wonderful things that you're doing for the Bucks County community, some stories that you've shared of your experiences, on each side of the bridge over the years. I could talk. I really could talk to you all day long, and I just, like I said, I can't thank you enough for joining us and and giving us that experience.
It has really been my pleasure. You know, you're one of my favorite people of all time, Meg. And I'm sure it's not a well-kept secret, but I still get the sand in my shoes. I can be seen pretty frequently down the shore. And I love to be anonymous, but I never mind being said hello to. So hopefully our paths will cross soon.
I hope so. I hope so. Give a shout when you're down this way, and we'll catch up in person.
We hope you've enjoyed this series. Don't forget to subscribe, because before you know it, we'll be back with another great conversation. This podcast is not a source of legal advice. No two legal cases are the same. Contact an attorney if you require legal assistance.